24 hours from now, polls will be open in South Carolina for the primary there as voters cast their ballots for the Democratic presidential nominee. Now, a new poll from Monmouth University shows Joe Biden maintains a strong lead heading into tomorrow's contest with 36% support. Bernie Sanders is in second. He's 20 percentage points behind, though. Ed O'Keefe is in Columbia, South Carolina. So, Ed, I know Saturday's the big day, for South Carolina, but it looks like a lot of the candidates have already left.
Some of them have, Anne-Marie. We counted it up, and there are at least 16 events across the state today being held by candidates. But as you mentioned, some of them are on their way out of here because a Biden win is seemingly likely. So they'd like to go talk to voters in those 14 states casting ballots on Super Tuesday.
This nation isn't looking for a revolution. It's looking for results.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is poised to win his first contest of the 2020 campaign. As he travels through South Carolina, he's touting a familiar talking point, his close work with former President Obama, vowing to build on the Affordable Care Act.
I'm not running to destroy Barack Obama's signature legislative achievement.
But his lead here isn't stopping opponents from raising concerns about whether he has what it takes to go the distance.
Joe Biden is a good friend of mine. I've known Joe for many years. He is a decent guy. But I don't believe that Joe can beat Trump when people learn that he voted for the war in Iraq.
As candidates prepare for Super Tuesday next week, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg believes he can emerge as the best alternative to Bernie Sanders.
We've got the most votes and the most delegates of any candidate besides Senator Sanders. I'm the only one who's beaten him anywhere.
On the trail, Democratic contenders are speaking out more frequently about the coronavirus. They fault President Trump for not doing more to prepare the country.
He's not leading, he's reacting much too late, and his incompetence really does put us all at risk.
I believe this has been a dangerously incompetent response to a global pandemic. And this is exactly my point about him. He's actually incompetent.
In a statement, Sanders said that the administration must stop releasing misleading, unscientific, and false information about whether the virus can be controlled. And Senator Elizabeth Warren introduced a bill that would divert all money budgeted to build a U.S.-Mexico border wall to instead fight the virus.
All right, Ed, the former vice president has been talking about South Carolina being sort of his firewall, right? That this is the state where he's going to win and everything's going to change for him. What would a decisive win that he's clearly ahead in the polls, what would that mean for Joe Biden's campaign moving forward?
A few things. First of all, it blunts Bernie Sanders' momentum, at least temporarily. And it would help him probably over the weekend raise significant sums of money going into Tuesday. He desperately needs the cash. His campaign said that on Wednesday, the day after our debate, he raised about $1.2 million, his best one-day fundraising haul. But that pales in comparison to some of the best one-day figures that Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg have had. So he needs the cash badly. It'll allow him to advertise a little more ahead of Tuesday, probably help pay for the plane fuel that he'll need to get to these states before they all cast ballots, and hopefully helps him, he would say hopefully, helps him make the case to voters not only in Super Tuesday states, but then the other March states. Remember, Florida, Arizona, Illinois are coming, Michigan as well, that he is the best moderate alternative to Bernie Sanders and the one that can unite the party behind him to defeat the president.
So let's look at our latest delegate totals. They show Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Amy Klobuchar still in the single digits. Warren has 8 delegates, Klobuchar has 7. So what kind of outcome do they need tomorrow if they hope to carry on?
Polling right now suggests that they're not going to hit viability or the at least 15% needed to win delegates here. They're really the only 3 that are likely to do that, if you believe all the surveys that have consistently shown this. It'll be the vice president, Senator Sanders, followed by businessman Tom Steyer. Steyer would get his first delegates on the board of this contest if he hits at least that 15%. Warren and Klobuchar at this point, Pete Buttigieg as well, are much more focused on those other states that are voting on Tuesday. Warren and Klobuchar have a unique problem. They've got to deliver in their own home state. Massachusetts and Minnesota, respectively, vote on Tuesday. They're also hoping to rack up some wins or at least some delegates in places like Oklahoma or Alabama, Washington State as well. Those are the places that are also voting. Buttigieg is focused much on Colorado, on Virginia, North Carolina, out in California as well. It is a massive day. More than 1,300 delegates, almost a third of all the delegates available. And there are only essentially two campaigns that can afford to go to all of those states at once in terms of staffing, advertising, and visits. The Bloomberg campaign and the Sanders campaign. And there are some reports out this morning, Anne-Marie, that suggest that already $1 billion has been spent on television advertising in this campaign cycle, far exceeding where we were at this point 4 years ago. It's because you have those massive states voting on Tuesday. California and Texas on the same day might as well be a national primary day, because if you can clean up in those states, you're probably on your way to a pretty good delegate haul. And after Tuesday, it's really hard to see how this field can remain as large as it is, because you're only going to bigger states, more spread out after that.
So as you've been hitting up some of the previous states with primaries and caucuses, you've been talking to a lot of voters, and this is balancing act, right, between issues and electability, So in South Carolina, what are the voters there thinking of as they head to the polls?
They're looking for somebody who can defeat the president as well, so electability. They are concerned about health care, the economy. The coronavirus concerns have certainly come up here in the last week. Not that different than everywhere else. Of course, the big unique draw to South Carolina, part of the reason it goes so early, is that about 60% of the Democratic primary electorate in this state is African American. So it is an early test of one's ability to win over black voters, not only here in the South, but potentially across the country. It's no secret that Joe Biden does very well with them. Bernie Sanders and Tom Steyer have eaten into that advantage a little bit, but it doesn't appear that they've eaten into it enough to stop the former vice president from winning big. And so he will make the argument after tomorrow night, should he win, that because he was able to win over the most loyal bloc of Democratic voters, African Americans, and probably especially black women, therefore he is best equipped to bring out the voters needed in November to defeat the president. Because remember, one of the ways the Democrats have argued over why they lost in 2016 isn't just that they lost, you know, the industrial states of Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. They said, yeah, we did lose those. And you know how we lost them? Because about 30,000 people who live in and around Detroit, a few thousand who live in and around Milwaukee and Philadelphia didn't show up. And those are disproportionately, or more likely to be, minority voters. So the hope is to find a nominee that can bring out people in those big cities and potentially win back those states for the party.
Interesting stuff, Ed. Thank you so much.